an undecided afternoon in the end of August, a father was wandering around in his garden and felt himself dispensable. He just didn't know what to do with himself, for every chore of the day was either done or somebody else was working on it.
Is manhood in a crisis? More and more jobs are getting replaced by machines. The divorce rates and suicide rates are increasing. Can the old values that used to guide men be retrieved once more? Or maybe should something else take its place? And also, did the author Tove Jansson predict this manly existential crisis in her book Moomin Pappa at Sea? In a way, before it was way simpler to be a man, because there was no question of what someone ought to do with his life. A man was born. Congratulations, your father is a farmer, and so will you be a farmer when you come of age, and all your sons and their sons too. But Dad, I don't want to be a farmer. I want to travel the world and find my own true self. Maybe study philosophy and maybe play music.
What? Philosophy? Music? Are you crazy? The whole village is dependent upon you keeping the tradition. Otherwise, they might starve to death.
But...
No buts, young man. Well, yeah, it sure was different before, but thankfully not anymore. But this is just one example, because before, it certainly wasn't just the profession that was decided for you. In many places, the marriages were arranged years in advance. And if it wasn't, most people lived in very small communities, so your choice of future spouse was maybe between 2 or 3 different people.
But now, nothing is fixed anymore. Everything is a matter of choice. What profession should I choose? The world is your oyster, is the reply. Who should I marry? Ever heard of Tinder? They have millions of users, and if you're not happy with the first one you marry, you can just swipe some more. I just want to underline that I'm not against any of this. I just think it's interesting how differently we live our lives compared with our ancestors when it comes to freedom of choice.
And here is a part of the problem that I want to highlight. Because the future we're building at the moment might lead to an extreme existential crisis where there might not be any ordinary jobs left to go to. Just like Moomin Pappa, people won't be needed anymore. It burned in the moss, and the mother said the fire could have started with a spark from the chimney. The father rose quickly from his chair, and in a second he became a responsible acting father. His hat rolled down the stairs. "It is out!" shouted Moomin after him. "We put it out immediately. You don't have to be anxious." The father stopped. "Did you put out the fire without me? Why didn't you say something? You just let me continue to sleep without a word." "Honey," said the mother from the kitchen window, "we thought it was unnecessary to wake you." But also, an interesting thing that takes place in the world right now is the reaction against this modern freedom of choice. I'm talking about the movement toward totalitarian regimes in the West. And maybe this is what Kierkegaard warned us about in his book The Sickness Unto Death. When one is given an infinite possibility of choice as we give children today, one will start to crave for duty, determinism, and even dictatorship.
the thesis always flicks over to its opposition.
But I think there are no turning back here. Returning to old values and others alike will almost be impossible in the future world we are building right now. But I think we have to talk about these things, or the consequences might be dire.
For instance, there were about 900,000 employed truck drivers in the US as of 2020. 86% of them were men. And right now the company Einride is planning in the year 2025 to try out driverless pods filled with goods between Gothenburg and Oslo. So this is really not far away. So my question is, what are we to do with all these people? Are they capable of becoming engineers or creatives in the new economy?
And that is just one example. It's really not hard to imagine a future world where all manual labor jobs will be taken away. No simple jobs will be on the market if a robot can do it better and cheaper.
I might be seriously wrong about this, and I truly hope I am, for if you look back at history, whenever a job has been replaced by a machine, like ice carriers before the time of the refrigerator, the economy didn't collapse, and people didn't just stay home and moan about being unemployed, they adjusted. And maybe the same thing will happen when AI takes over all these boring jobs.
But I'm not so sure, because in many ways this crisis has already begun.
There is a rift growing between the genders. Men and women don't want and don't need each other like before. For instance, here is a graph of women's marriage rate from 1900 all the way to 2018. And the sex toy market has about tripled in size since 2016. And then you have the more and more increasing porn industry. And on top of all this, there is a violent incel movement growing. So this crisis will of course affect women as well, but in a different way.
I don't know about you guys, but at least I am very worried about the future. What should we really do about this existential crisis we're facing? I think we need to discuss these things before it completely hits us in the face.
The Grok came a bit closer. She was staring at the lamp and slowly shaking her big heavy head. A pale fog of chill rolled forward next to her feet. Inside, the calm room became filled with screams and waving commotion. The chairs fell, the light was taken away, and in a moment, the porch was completely dark. Everybody had saved themselves inside the house. "But she's not so dangerous," said the mother. "You know she's not dangerous, even though she can be scary." "Sure thing she is dangerous," answered the father. "But she has never done anything," said the mother. "Now, I think we should all go to bed." "Fine," said the father and put back his weapon in a corner. "Fine. If she's not at all dangerous, then you won't need protection. How lovely." And he ran out onto the porch.